Yo, what's going on, Headliner Nation? Your boy Kyle back with the Fantasy Headliners, and my show today is going to be all about you're too late. Now, what does that mean? Well, a lot of the information we're going to talk about today and some of the premise of it is going to maybe gravitate towards keeper or dynasty leagues a little bit more. But if you play fantasy football of any kind, this is still really good information. Even if you're doing redraft, it's probably going to be a pretty good idea to know some of these values as you come back into draft season in a few months. But the premise of the show is going to be taking a look at players where you've missed a window of opportunity to acquire them at a good price. All these guys, their values are too high now to really try and attack. And every player has a window of opportunity when you look at acquiring them. You want to try and get them when they're going to be right before their breakout, or right before they take off, or right before an event that tends to bump their value up a rung. Okay. And all these guys, I see it on Twitter and some YouTube comments and things like that. Well, I'm going to try and get this guy. I'm going to try. I see these are the four names, the four that I've seen a lot recently. And I'm going to tell you all, you've missed that window of opportunity. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to talk a little bit about their 2021 outlook, and I'm going to give you a player to pivot to that might be right before I don't want to say an explosion in their value, but again, their value seeing a nice climb up the ladder for many reasons. Let's take a look at a tight end first. And my first tight end is going to be a guy that we've talked about a few times on this show already this offseason. It's Irv Smith Jr. Last season, 43 targets, 30 receptions, 365 yards, and 5 touchdowns. And a couple of weeks ago, I did a show on Irv Smith Jr., so I'm not going to spend too much time on him, but go back and check it out. If you've missed it, it's back a couple of weeks, Irv Smith Jr., and what it means for his value now that Kyle Rudolph is gone. These numbers that you see here from 2020 are likely to climb, and when you kind of take them out over a full 16-game slate, and you look at numbers that tight ends and and Zimmer's offense have had before, you're going to be looking at a guy that could potentially go as high as a top 5 tight end to as low as a low tight end 1. So the range of outcomes are quite a bit. Well, what could be the range of outcomes in 2021? What are the outlooks on it? Well, again, no more Kyle Rudolph. He is gone. You have to ask yourself the question, though, is he going to be the third or the fourth target on this offense? Because obviously you're going to have Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, 1A, 1B, okay? But then after that, is it going to be Irv Smith Jr. or is it going to be Dalvin Cook? If it's Dalvin Cook, then at that point you got to look and say, hey, is there going to be enough targets for this guy who could be the fourth target in this offense? That's where things start to get a little bit dicey with trying to acquire Irv Smith Jr. because I like him. I like him a lot, but is Minnesota going to be committed to involving him in the passing game more than just being the fourth target? If he's the third target and we take away some of those targets that maybe Dalvin Cook's been getting, and we obviously take those targets that Kyle Rudolph got and move them over to Irv Smith Jr., that's great. Is Tyler Conklin going to be on the field more often? Are they going to keep trying to run some 2 tight end sets? A lot of questions still there for me. The upside is 100% there. I've just been trying to be cautious with what exactly that outcome could be in 2021. And we know that Irv Smith has that big playability. The dude averaged over 12 yards per reception last year. And when you got a guy like Thielen and got a guy like Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook in the backfield, it's going to lend to some big plays. So instead of maybe trying to go out and get Irv Smith Jr. right now, a guy whose value is a little bit lower but could be moving soon is Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz right now kind of being overshadowed. A down 2020, dealt with an injury, and Dallas Goedert really broke out. And kind of established himself and cemented himself as the number 1 tight end in that offense. Now, trading Zach Ertz could lead to a little bit of room to move some money around. They could just be looking to move away from him because maybe the new offense isn't really going to be looking to use 2 tight end sets, so they want to just keep Dallas Goedert out there a lot. Whatever it may be, there is a potential that he could be traded, and there is a potential that he could be traded very soon. If he goes to another team as the tight end one, his value is going to skyrocket again, and that window that we've talked about is going to close. A wide receiver who very recently entered into the discussion, Gabriel Davis. Now, Gabriel Davis is a guy who got brought up quite a bit on this channel last season when we talked about waiver wire picks. And this was the guy that I was looking at even in DFS quite a bit because it seemed like when John Brown missed a game, Gabriel Davis was finding the end zone. Only 35 reception on 62 targets. Would like to see that number maybe come up a little bit, but 599 yards and 7 touchdowns. He cemented himself as a big play weapon. How about that 2021 outlook? Well, the reason that Gabriel Davis and his value have soared recently is because John Brown was released. So now Gabriel Davis moving to the outside is really that full-time outside receiver opposite of Stephon Diggs seems inevitable at this point. Now, one person that you can pivot to on this team is going to be Cole Beasley. In PPR leagues, he's a guy that should absolutely have another excellent season. But people are going to be excited about Gabriel Davis because of that big play ability that we saw from him last year. Can he be a little bit more consistent, though? We saw, those receptions. Can we get those receptions more towards maybe like a 70% catch percentage? I would like to see him be not just a big play guy, but a guy that can win all over the field. And on top of that, is Buffalo going to add a running back? If they add a running back that can be a little bit more consistent than what Zach Moss and Devin Singletary were last year, that bodes well for this moving to a little bit more of a balanced offense. They're still going to throw it quite a bit, and there's still going to be opportunities. But how consistent will Gabriel Davis be within those opportunities? Now, I like Gabriel Davis. Do not get me wrong. I absolutely do like him. If I can have him, I will take him. But part of that is right now is you're not really going to be able to get him because if you know somebody that has Gabriel Davis on their roster, number one, they're either a truther that is really excited and definitely not going to miss this, or number two, they acquired him on the cheap last year, and now that he looks to be more in line for starts, they're not going to want to move on from him yet at this point either. So who is a guy that is kind of similar that could end up seeing a wild boost in his value very soon? It's Darnell Mooney from the Chicago Bears. He is a guy that I would run out and try to get right now. You've franchise tagged Allen Robinson, all right? Now, is he going to end up actually being in Chicago next year? I don't know, okay? But let's just say, for instance, Allen Robinson plays 2021 in Chicago. He does that. Chicago is going to be adding a quarterback. They are going to be adding a quarterback, and it's probably going to come in the draft. And it's going to be one of these top quarterbacks that everyone seems to be in love with. Now, who is it going to end up being? I don't know. But if they do end up trading up and they take a guy like a Trey Lance, Justin Fields, whoever it may be, a Zach Wilson, Darnell Mooney at that point, he's going to start to see a bigger and bigger climb with his value. So if you're going to move, you're going to want to move now because as soon as the Chicago Bears get a quarterback, Darnell Mooney is going to be too expensive as well. At the running back position, it's A.J. Dillon. His name's been brought up since last year. Only 242 yards and 46 attempts and a couple of touchdowns. But Quadzilla, oh, you know that people are excited about him now, especially with Aaron Jones likely leaving. The Green Bay Packers, they could still sign him to an extension. They could still end up bringing him back. I don't really think that they want to, and they shouldn't. They're not going to franchise tag him. That's been made clear. That franchise tag will not be placed on Aaron Jones. So maybe they do try to talk about a long-term deal. But if not, then A.J. Dillon and Jamal Williams are going to be the guys next year. Now, everyone is going to be way more excited for A.J. Dillon. Why? Because he's the shiny new weapon, all right? He's the new toy in the toy chest. Everyone wants to play with A.J. Dillon as much as they possibly can. Everyone wants to add him on as many rosters as they possibly can. I get it. That's fine. However, do we really know that A.J. Dillon is going to become some crazy running back one next year? It's possible. But if they bring back Jamal Williams as well, you really think they're going to bring back Jamal Williams just to sit him on the bench and let A.J. Dillon get 60, 70, 80% of the touches? No. This is likely going to be a 50-50 split But A.J. Dillon is way too expensive right now. People are not moving on from A.J. Dillon. And if you have to acquire him, you're likely going to be giving up way too much. Personally, what have I seen? Well, one of the dynasty leagues that I'm in is an industry league with other industry professionals. And I don't want to call anybody out, but a certain website sent me a trade offer and basically wanted me to give up my 1.08 for A.J. Dillon. Why? Why would I do that? This is also a Superflex league. So the quarterbacks are going to go very early. There's more than enough running backs to take, and there's some top-end wide receivers, and throw Kyle Pitts in there somewhere. You really think I'm going to give you the 8th overall pick for A.J. Dillon, who's likely still going to be splitting touches, and we still don't know if Aaron Jones will be back? No. Not happening. And this offer was actually sent to me before we even knew Aaron Jones wasn't coming back via the franchise tag. That's not happening, but that's the kind of price people are going to want. So who's someone that you could pivot to that, again, will probably be seeing a rise in their value very soon? For me, it's Tariq Cohen. And again, it kind of goes back to what I said about Darnell Mooney. You know, with Darnell Mooney at this point and Tariq Cohen both, once they get a quarterback, that's going to give them a lot of opportunities. And with Cohen, people have basically forgotten about him because of his surgery last year. With the way David Montgomery played at the end of the year, Cohen will still likely come back and make a pretty, I'm not going to say make a huge impact, but he's a guy that you could get cheap right now. And depending on the quarterback that they take, people could be like, wait a second, all right, they just drafted a rookie quarterback. This is a guy that could end up checking down quite a bit. They're going to be using Tariq Cohen. And maybe the offensive line, if there's any struggles there, it's going to have to be getting the ball away really, really quick because you don't want to get your new franchise quarterback absolutely smashed. Tariq Cohen's going to be the guy to kind of drop in there. So he's another one whose value is going to be rising here probably in the next few weeks. And Tariq Cohen might be the cheapest person that you can get that I've mentioned in this show. Tariq Cohen you can probably get for next to nothing. Jalen Hurts. Now we know about Jalen Hurts. Everybody wants a little piece of Jalen Hurts. 77 completions on 148 attempts, threw for 1,061 yards last year. He added another 300-plus yards on the ground and 9 total touchdowns. Carson Wentz, as soon as Carson Wentz was traded, people were like, oh, okay, now I'm going to try and get Jalen Hurts. No, you were supposed to get Jalen Hurts before they traded Carson Wentz. Not after. So what's his outlook this year? Well, the owner's committed. Jeffrey Lurie has already said that we are going with Jalen Hurts. You find the weapons to put around him, and you make the offense fit him. We're not going anywhere else with a quarterback. You spent this pick on Jalen Hurts. You traded our former first-round pick. You figure it out with Jalen Hurts at quarterback, and that is what the Eagles are going to end up doing. Like I mentioned, though, they're going to need to find some weapons for him. Right now, basically, all you've got is Jalen Reagor for wide receiver. And then, of course, you got Miles Sanders in the backfield. If they do trade Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert's only going to be one tight end there. And the offense is going to need to be retooled a little bit as well. It's going to need to fit to Jalen Hurts' strengths. We're going to need to roll out of the pocket a little bit. We're going to have to do some designed runs, some option runs. We're going to have to keep the defense honest with his playmaking ability. Those things are going to have to happen with Jalen Hurts. But right now, especially if you play in any type of a super flex or 2 QB league, Jalen Hurts is going to be extravagant to try and get. Now, in a 1 QB league, you probably don't even need to try and trade for him. But for those of you that play in other types of leagues, Jalen Hurts is just going to be insanely overpriced right now for you need to worry about trying to go grab him. Who's someone else that could be super cheap, though? How about a former first-round pick from the year before, Tua Tagovailoa? Okay. Tua is kind of in an in-between status right now. But in 2021, he is going to be a starter. We just don't know what team yet. Right now, people are still thinking that, Miami swings some sort of a deal and they bring in Deshaun Watson. It doesn't matter if that happened. Tua is going to be the starting quarterback in Houston then. Doesn't matter if they were to swing a deal for another type of quarterback, which I don't really see Russell Wilson being traded, but let's say Russell Wilson gets traded to Miami. Tua is going to be the starting quarterback in Seattle. So basically, any type of a quarterback trade, Tua is probably going to be included in it. And whatever team he goes to, he's probably going to be the starter. So his future isn't really that up in the air. Right now, we're just kind of waiting on him and holding to see what happens. But there's probably owners out there who would be willing to walk away from him for not really a whole lot. Some of that comes from what we saw last year. Okay, wasn't dominant performances like we saw, but he's coming off a major injury the year before to his hip. He's getting back to it. Last year was his first game action. Obviously didn't really have the beginning of the season to kind of get ready with any of the first teamers because we didn't have those longer practices. We didn't have rookie camp or anything like that. So Tua is probably going to be somebody that you could get right now. That's really not going to cost you a whole lot. But Headliner Nation, there you go. There are 4 guys that you're just too late on and a few pivots to go with it as well. Hey, don't forget, if you're interested in supporting the channel and you want access to a bunch of extra content, Patreon is the way to go. You can sign up for only $5 a month and you're going to get access to a ton of extra goodies. It's well worth it. I promise you. Also on top of it, make sure that you head over to our new YouTube channel, Headliner U, headed up by my boy Chris Chouse. He's over there breaking down the 2021 draft class, and they are in session. Class has already started over there. They're filling you in on all the draft prospects this year and in the future. Headliner Nation, appreciate you stopping in for this video. Stay safe, stay healthy. I'll catch you on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.